There are two general styles of spiritual practice within Tantra, and these can be found in some other spiritual traditions as well, but I'm only going to speak about Tantra here. One style of practice is called ascetic spiritual practice, and an ascetic spiritual practice, as I define it, is any practice that has you quieting or shutting off or turning away from sensory input. The primary example of this would be silent meditation, where you sit quietly so that the movement of the body doesn't disturb the mind, where you pick a quiet place where you won't be disturbed. You sit in a very stable seat or asana because, again, you don't want to fall over when you become deeply absorbed in your practice. But the chief characteristic of this type of practice is denial or shutting down the senses. Celibacy is another ascetic practice, of course, or fasting, staying awake longer than is comfortable. Those are all other kinds of ascetic practices, torturing the body, and various more extreme practices. But as I'm going to speak about asceticism within the context of Tantra, I'm primarily going to talk about a practice like silent meditation that has one shut off sensory input as much as possible so that one's attention can be turned within. Now, ascetic practices have always been popular, and most of what's taught about Eastern religion or philosophy or spirituality in the West falls into the category of ascetic practice. So the yoga system is very ascetic in its character, in that it's all about turning the attention from the outside world within. It's a good thing. These practices are popular because if they're done correctly, they work, and they can work rather quickly. Now, the other style of practice is what I call an ecstatic practice. In ecstatic practice, the senses are not restricted, are not intentionally shut off, and instead the senses are trained so that the net result is a direction of attention toward the spiritual goal, not away from the world, but through and within the world. Now, the basis for such a practice, the philosophical basis, is what is called Shaktivada, or the doctrine of Shakti, which says that the material world is the embodiment of Shakti, which is Shakti means energy, actually, if you want to take it in its actual literal meaning. Another way of understanding Shakti is the divine consciousness that manifests the world. Energy. So, yeah. So recognizing that there's a divine consciousness that manifests the world is easier said than done. And so within Tantra, we practice both ascetic meditation, quieting of the mind, and training of the senses. And the training of the senses occurs in traditional Hindu Tantra, and Buddhist Tantra too, I believe, primarily through the practice of ritual. And Tantric rituals are extraordinarily sophisticated psychological training tools. And just reading about the ritual might not reveal that fact. In my own experience, you have to really practice the rituals. You have to first understand where they're coming from. You have to understand the philosophy that generated these rituals in the first place. Apropos of this, Swami Vivekananda said that ritual is concretized philosophy, and that's a very nice way of understanding Tantric ritual, that this philosophy, Shaktivada, gets concretized in ritual. And through the practice of ritual, one comes to realize the truth of the philosophy that generated the ritual. That is, that there is one divine energy, conscious energy, that has manifested as this universe, including our own bodies, minds, senses, and so on. And Tantric ritual very pointedly trains our minds and bodies and senses to perceive this truth in time.